Clive and Laura, it's good to meet you and to have you here. Would you be so nice and introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
Ladies first.
Ladies first, right, Laura.
Hello guys, hello Anna, and thanks for having us here. I'm Laura Piazzai, singer of Imaginarium and Camera, and so welcome to this great interview that we will have, great chat that we will have with Miss Anna.
Hi, I'm Clive. I play in all sorts of bands like Arena and Pendragon, and indeed Imaginarium, and write lots of music. And I'm looking forward to answering as many questions as we can fit in this evening.
That's cool.
We start with the first one. Tell us about Imaginarium and how it was born.
Laura.
Imaginarium came to life the day when Eric Bouilette came to Cheltenham listening to my voice specifically, because I was invited by Clive Nolan to take the part of the baddie in The Mortal Light, so his last forthcoming musical, and in the role of Macaria, the baddie, of course. And Mr. Eric Bouilette, unfortunately, our friend, rip him, because he passed away the 21st of August 2022, and we were very, very friends. So we became friends immediately after that show. He literally felt for my voice, and he said, "Wow, you got such a temperament, you got such a passion, you've got such a big, powerful voice. I want to write something epic for you." And I said, "Well, yes." And he was passionate of this historical stories, like, these Italian families full of treachery, full of fightings and love and whatever. And, I was passionate of that things too. So we thought about the Medici, actually, which is an Italian powerful family that built Florence as the Florence you know now, and it's so important for Florence. It's everything. The Medici are everything for Florence. And this is how we started, and we contacted someone very good in writing lyrics, like Mr. Clive Nolan. And here is what happened, Clive.
Hello. He did. It was it was lucky, really, because I don't normally do other projects. Because I got loads of stuff that I do myself. But the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden I was sitting at home with an awful lot of extra time because all the touring had been cancelled. And Eric contacted me and asked whether I'd be interested in putting some lyrics together for this project. So I said, okay, well, I'll have a look and look up the Medici family a little bit, do a bit of research. And it kind of drew me in pretty quickly, really. I found the story interesting, and it only took a day or two, and I presented him with a complete concept, with an idea of who could sing and how many singers, and a storyline and the whole kind of package. And it wasn't long after that I ended up writing an awful lot of it as well, because basically it just interested me as a sound. He sent me some of his demos, and I sort of added to that, really. Ta-da!
Cool. What's the story behind the band name?
The story behind the band name is very, very interesting, because it wanted to kind of let you be involved in the whole project. So when you say Imaginarium, you actually imagine to sit there listening to this story, but in the same time be inside of the story, So you kind of a side actor of the whole stuff, and it's really... It drags you inside. This is the thing we hope that arrives to the listener. And this was what Eric wanted to. Let me just introduce also Eric Bouilette, because Eric Bouilette is a very, very, still is, because for me it's like it was alive. Eric Bouilette was a very, very talented musician. He played in several bands. He had several projects, and the husband also of our promoter Anne Claire, and he actually played the violin, the mandolin, the guitar, all the beautiful solos you hear. Those are all his masterpieces. So a very important musician and talent that left us.
Okay, that just makes sense. So, tell me about the other band members that are involved in it. You talked about Anne Claire. She's also with Nine Skies, that I know, right? And who else is involved in it?
Well, I think once we started talking about the project, we needed singers, and I suggested Andy Sears could be interesting to play the part of Cosimo because basically he's used to playing bad guys in all my stuff that I get him to work on, and I thought it'd be interesting to get him to do a goodie. There was a girl called Elena who has this wonderful classical sort of voice, and I thought that would be just right for what we were looking for, is this kind of commentary on the way through the album. Elena Vajuk, that is, and then in the end I ended up singing the fourth part myself because I hadn't played a baddie before, so I thought that would be kind of fun. Scott Hyam on drums is somebody, he's kind of like my wingman. I've worked with him on all sorts of musicals, and he was in Pendragon some years ago as well, so it was kind of easy to think, well, I'll bring him in on that. I also a guy called Mark Spencer helped me put together the monks, the plain chant thing that goes on in the background. And Mark's got a great sort of low voice for that kind of stuff, so we definitely, I thought that would work very nicely as well. Who else have we got, Laura?
Then we have on bass Bernard Herry, a French musician, and he gave actually this. Bass is not maybe the essential in this, but the notes he put in, they were simply flawless. Then we needed somebody, of course, to mix it, and we have Alexandre Lamia, and he did an excellent job with our help also, because of course it was the first time for him to mix something so big and so complex as Medici. And Eric, he really wanted him to be the person to finally mix it. And yes, we all together made a beautiful teamwork. It was like kind of a team of friends, It was very until the end, we all collaborated. I mean, like the four of us especially. So Eric, Clive, and I, and Alexander. We had to really be very close to each other to really go to the end and to really get the perfection on every little single sound to get what you hear today.
I think the important thing was that we really wanted to finish the album in time for Eric to experience it.
Yeah.
And it became, as time went on through that year, it became a race against time as he was getting sicker. And luckily we did. We managed to finish the mixes, we finished the album, and he got to listen to the whole album. He never got to hold the album in his hands, which is a shame, but he did get to hear it. And he was extremely proud of it, as far as I know. He figured it was the best thing he'd ever done. So we're out here promoting it now.
Was it in July, Clive? We finished the mixing part. So basically 1 month before he passed away. So I
think you'll find it was even closer than that.
Well, maybe even closer. Yes, July, 1st of August, something like that. First week of August. Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
Wherever he is right now, he will be very proud of all of you and all of this, I'm very sure. And wherever this will take you guys, and I'm very sure you will come very far with this, because it's a really, really great piece of art, for sure. So
Thank you.
Before we move on to your concept album, I want to know what got you into making music. Laura, you want to start?
Well, let's say I started as a little kid when I started in the church choir in Sweden, and from that it was automatically there. I couldn't stop singing. Well, I talk a lot, but I couldn't stop singing. So if I didn't want to talk the whole day long, I had to find another way to get my voice out there, and singing was very natural, I think. And as I have this great passion for singing, I started to get very curious to listen to loads of genres. But in the end, well, because I worked in dance music, yes, I know, but that's in the discography and everything. But it was fun in any way. And in the end, after playing loads of soul and R&B, I ended up listening to a band that Clive might know, and it's Arena. And I got completely blown away. I was blown away by Arena, and decided to write to this man that we know. And from there, I was like, blocked and imprisoned in this beautiful prog world I like so much now. And I think, actually, my friend said, well, now when they listen, now when I sing, when I'm out singing with a band, or when I'm singing just myself out, even with instrumental things or backing tracks or whatever, they just say, you don't have the same passion that you have when you sing Clive songs. So probably my voice was really born to go into that direction, probably. Yeah.
Mr. I don't like hugs. What did you make? What made you fall into music?
Oh, I was in music from my earliest memory, my earliest moments. I mean, my parents are both musicians and music teachers, and my dad had been sort of in the entertainment business as well in earlier years. So I was brought up in a musical environment from square one, and I came up through a very sort of classical education. My sort of direction into music was, sort of violin and piano to a certain point, and other string instruments. And I went to university, and I did a music degree, and then I stayed on and I did a further, what they call a master's in music. So my kind of direction that I was expecting to go was quite a classical direction, but it was just around the time that I was doing the last stages of what I was doing at university. I ended up joining Pendragon, because they needed a keyboard player. And I had formed as like a rock band at school, just towards the end of my time at school. So I was sort of already dabbling with that kind of music. But it's kind of a strange thing, really, because all the work that I'd done with the sort of music degree at that stage all kind of went to the side, because it's not, what I was doing in rock music, you don't really need what I was doing in the other area. Except, as I learned as time went on, it does come in handy. An understanding and harmony and understanding of counterpoint, all these things that, perhaps one wouldn't expect to necessarily pay attention to in rock music. All of a sudden, I sort of started discovering it did come in handy. And of course, my main stuff was orchestration and conducting and such like. And that's all started to come to fruit with the musicals that I've written and some of the bigger sort of epic pieces that I've done. And indeed, the Medici thing, which has got a fair bit of orchestra in as well.
Let's get towards that. Let's get to your concept album, The Rise of Medici. How would you define the sound of it?
It's Renaissance meets rock, really. I mean, that's the main kind of element. You've got this sort of Renaissance spine to the whole thing, and that's threading all the way through. That's kind of depicted. It's an interpretation. It's not pure Renaissance, but you've got your strings, you've got your harpsichord, your lute, your mandolin, all those sort of instruments. So they're going to be evocative of that sort of period. And then slamming into the right-hand side comes the sort of rock element, and you've got the sort of power metal, and you've got the sort of heavier rock elements with the guitars, the electric guitar, Eric's sort of big leads and what have you. And you sort of slam the two together, mash up, and that's what we've got. And yeah, I've got to be honest. I really like the sound. I think it works really well.
The sound is great. It works. The sound is really great. Tell us more about the compositional process and who was involved in it, please.
Well, it began when Eric first contacted me and we started talking. He said, "Okay, well, I've done six demos, six little bits of material. Some of them were like 16 bars, some of them were a bit longer." And he sent them to me, and I said to him, "Well, I think we can use 5 of them." I said, "There's one we threw in the bin, but the other 5." So that was a starting point. And then I just said, "Well, look, could I take one of your ideas and work with it and turn it into a bigger song and whatever?" "Yeah, no problem." So I did. And then I said, "Do you mind if I write another one? I've got an idea for a song in itself." And I did that. And it just grew out. I just ended up writing a lot. I had the time, and I'm sort of quite a fast writer. If I'm in the right mode. It worked really well because Eric, he was just, I kind of fed off his energy. He was just so kind of enthusiastic. I'd sort of send a new demo, and it was almost like an event. "Hey, Eric, I got a new piece. Great." So, and I'd send it to him and send it to Laura, and I'd sort of sit there waiting. I thought, "Oh, maybe they don't like it." And then I'd get this, "Wow." And it was sort of, "Yeah, okay, that's in." And then we sort of carry on from there. So it kind of, it worked really well. And those 5 pieces of material that Eric sent me in the first place are the kind of the spring from which this whole thing came as well. So once I sort of heard those demos, I knew what he wanted. So then it was a lot easier for me to do, to write what I was going to write.
And how about the recording process of it? Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of it was done virtually because we were still kind of emerging from the COVID experience. And so I remember Scott, the drummer, once we'd written the album, so basically Eric was able to do his own guitars. So as we were writing, he was doing the guitars for real. And as we were writing, I was doing the keyboard parts for real. So by the time we had the sort of the map of the whole album, the keyboards and the guitars were mostly done. So that was, which meant we were able to sort of get a very good idea of how it was all sounding, and it wasn't hard to sort of stick a bit of fake bass down to start with, just to kind of. So we were all up and running. So we got Scott into our studio during one of those little periods where the lockdown was loosened up and you could have 2 people in your house and all this sort of business. And we got him in and recorded the drums. We got the bassist to do his own work. I think, I'm not sure, I think he's French, so therefore he'd have done that in France.
Yeah.
I recorded, well, let me think. Yes, I think Andy recorded his own vocals. I recorded my own vocals. And Elena, I did bring into the studio again on one of those little gaps, and I got Laura over to England because I wanted to record her myself. She demoed it herself in Italy, but I wanted to kind of make sure we couldn't really afford to get that wrong. With the let's be honest, an album like this, it is all about the vocals, really, or a lot of it. So we needed to get that right. So it was very much, again, an album that was made in different studios at different times and then gradually sewn together.
Mm-hmm. And what is the album about, and where did that idea come from?
Well, it's an origin story, as they would say with superheroes. When I looked into the Medici family, I mean, they have a long history of, existence, and I just thought the most interesting bit was how it all began, how it all grew up, those early stories, and so that was the sort of direction I wanted to take it in. The actual story itself, well, Laura can tell you that. You're Italian.
I'm Italian. Thanks for this. And yes, well, the actual story, it's the story of this powerful bankers that started well, yes, the history of banking in Florence, and at that time, as we know, it wasn't so easy like it is today, because when you had like enemies, even in France, you had enemies. So it was all about being the strongest and being the most powerful and being the bravest around to be easily, let's say, to be able to survive. That it was all about that. And every family had its big enemy. In this case, it was degli Albizzi. So Rinaldo we have here. And everything was actually based upon this, about upon fightings, about upon friendship, but the month before you were my worst enemy. So this is all about that. It's a very interesting story, actually, and I hope that people are going to appreciate the fact that we brought something so powerful and something so big in Italian history on an album.
Do we want to talk through the characters? Let's start with Contessina, which is yours.
Yes. Contessina is it's the most incredible woman, I think. One of the most incredible women in history to me, as I am living let's say, her history now through my voice. And what I wanted for her was something really powerful to come out, so the voice and how I acted, how I pronounced every single word was so important to make this character come out in her full power, in her full strength, as a mother, as a wife. Well, she wasn't so lucky as a wife, as Cosimo wasn't the best of husbands, but by the way, she was a good wife, and she was really the key that kept together the family, and that literally saved his head from being hanged. So actually, when he ended up in prison, thanks to her, let's say, it was possible to turn back in a glorious way for the family Medici, to come back to Florence, thanks to Contessina, actually. History never tells this story, maybe not enough. They are never okay. If we watch the series, yes, but actually the books never mention her so much as actually she was a very powerful character person. And I'm very happy that you, Clive, brought Contessina in her powerful clothes back to it, and so it gave me the chance to.
Well, I mean, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, history does write about her, because I've just written that. So on that basis, I mean, I think it's there. If you do a certain amount of research, you put the clues together. She was obviously a very important part of this picture, and so was Cosimo. I mean, this wouldn't have happened without him as well, good or bad, his good traits or bad traits. He was ruthless, perhaps in his search for power. He was very aware of the influence that he could wield. He needed Contessina. He needed that solid background to work with as well, to be able to do what he did. And it's true that she kind of, when the chips were down for Cosimo, basically she saved his life, effectively. So but nevertheless, he was the kind of linchpin that started the whole dynasty that went on to be this Medici banking for powerful family that went through hundreds of years. And Rinaldo, I sort of cheated a little bit with Rinaldo, and I hope he would forgive me for this, because I've sort of taken Rinaldo and I've used him as representing a lot of people who really didn't like Cosimo. And there's that jealousy and that wish for him to fall so that they could rise. Rinaldo was not the only one who felt that way. He happened to be slightly higher profile, which is why we see his name perhaps before we see other names. But, you know, he was certainly not alone. In fact, obviously he wasn't, because it was a group of people that overthrew Cosimo initially anyway. But I've used him as the kind of the sort of catalyst for the baddie. And nothing's that black and white. But in this, you know, when you're doing a concept like this, a story like this, you have to kind of, well, I feel you have to keep things reasonably clear and simple so that you can get from one place to the other, especially when you're doing as like, you know, it's songs. You don't have a lot of time to tell the story, so you've got to keep it sort of focused. So, you know, Ronaldo, like I say, represents all that sort of the bad side of things. And he may well have had a point. He's not necessarily completely in the wrong about what Cosimo was, but, you know, it's always the winner that gets to tell the story, isn't it? So on that basis, that's it. And Elena's character, she isn't really anyone specific. Again, she's really a commentary. She's just helping us to sort of fill in the gaps of the story when there's a moment where we need to get from one place to the other, and she helps us find our way through the story. And there you are, 4 characters. There was going to be a fifth.
Called Lucrezia. Lucrezia is her character's name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was also going to be Cosimo's brother. But I initially wrote for five singers, and then as I started piecing lyrics together and going more detailed into the concept, it struck me that if I was going to have a 5th character and have this whole story about him going and getting the army and all this, there was a whole load of other storylines, I'd have to write a double album. And that wasn't what we were trying to do. So I took that character away from the story. But, you know, there's a lot of other very relevant people in the Cosimo Medici story. Medici story, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read about it, and I heard a whole podcast about it today. So I'm actually curious now, really, about that more, because it's quite interesting. So, and how about the monks? What role do they play?
Well, I just, you know, the funny thing was, the very first thing I thought about writing, once we'd got past the concept and the storyline and the number of singers and all the rest of it, and I sat down to think about what would be an interesting way, I wanted to give the album, which I do with every album I write, I wanted to give it an identity, something that, you know, you'll always know that album for. And it struck me that the saying, the motto of the family was Festina Lente. So basically, make haste slowly. And it's it's actually a very good motto in many ways. I mean, we have a lot of similar kind of sayings in English that kind of, you know, if you're moving slowly means you can win the race, that sort of thing. And so I started with that, and I thought, well, Festina Lente, it's Latin, or at least it's Italian, but to me it's Latin. Right. And I just thought, well, okay, so that suggests to me to be plain song, and the plain song might help to give us that sort of little bit of historical identity to help that Renaissance thing, actually earlier than Renaissance, I mean, obviously plain song. I thought it would just help with that identity. So I started off by coming up with this plain song line that we could use at various points in the album, and making use of the Festina Lente, make haste slowly motto, and you'll find I've sort of threaded that through the album. You'll find it appearing not just at the beginning, but in various other places as well.
And there we talk through the whole album now, from song to song. You started with Festina Lente, right? And the next song is called Duty of Love. So let's talk through the story of each song until we finally arrive at the legacy.
Duty of Love is the moment when Contessina is called for the wedding, and obviously she was already engaged to a person, and she had to leave this person, and become this important person and important wife of this important man, Cosimo de' Medici. So from that moment on, Contessina knew that her life would have changed, not only because she had to leave her real love, let's say, and we got love. We start with the love element, which is very important, coming into this forcing to become someone that in the beginning you don't want to become. So the wife of someone you don't know. And here she promises to pledge to this family and to be forever part of the Medici and become 100% Medici, basically, and everything will be shared. Everything that she will do in her future will be only for the benefit of this family. So this is the first song with this song, The Wedding with Cosimo. This is the first song.
Yeah. House of Dreams is the next song. And it's a duet between Contessina and Cosimo. And really, it's in many ways, I saw this as their kind of contract between each other. This is their sort of the moment where they agree on how this is going to work, and they agree that they're headed for the stars. That's the whole idea. Together, we're going to build this empire. And, you know, Contessina will be the power behind the throne. I will be there doing what we need to do. And this is an oath of loyalty, fealty, faith. You know, we're gonna be inseparable, bonded. And that's the idea behind that song. And that's the contract that they have between each other, which is something I felt came very clear through what I read through the histories. And therefore, I thought it was something you had to set that up. To make this story work, you need to know that that's the situation, that they are tightly bonded, and she's not just going to wander off if things get slightly tough or something like that. So that was that's the one. I'm looking over here because I've got the set order, and I'm just sort of reminding myself.
Yeah.
The tide will change.
Yeah, good.
Tide will change, Ronaldo.
Yeah, that's Ronaldo's big sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Moody number. Yeah, I mean, he's, you know, so the rise of Medici is already happening now. You know, Cosimo has bonded with Contessina. They're making things grow. So we hear the mumblings of discontent in the background represented by Rinaldo. And he's sort of saying, well, you know, it's all very well for you to, you know, this is all going very well, but your arrogance is going to bring you down. You're not paying enough attention to the details of what's going on around you. People like us will be bringing people like you down, is really what he's saying.
You're jealous, Ronaldo, you're jealous.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's jealous. He wants to be what Cosimo is. That's how I would interpret that as well. So, yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing. And then, you know, so that we know where we are in this overall arc of the Medici story, we bring in Lucrezia to comment on where we are in the situation. And she's basically saying, well, hey, don't close your eyes, don't blink, don't turn away, because you don't know who your friends are and you really don't know who your enemies are. So she's sort of giving us this clarification of where we stand in that sort of journey that Cosimo and Contessina are taking. And so never close your eyes is a warning, but it's also an observation at the time. Yeah. And that then leaves us into Glass Throne. Laura, do you want to do that one?
Yes, that's Contessina singing about her, let's say, her role, the difficulty to move on with the, let's say, with the family, with the how fragile keeping the power can be, and how difficult it is to move alone because we are near to see move our Cosimo on exile. So it means that she has the power in her hands. How difficult, this glass throne. I love this title because it gives you the idea of the fragile but in the same time the powerful moment of her life where she really had to connect all the things and keep them all together. In the meanwhile, also try to help the husband not to get exiled forever and bring him back.
So once we've established that, I mean, basically we move on to treachery. So this is the first big sort of hiccup in the Medici journey. And basically, this is Rinaldo. He makes his move. He turns against Cosimo. He has a group of people. He's built up support. And we now get that. And the intensity in the music and the song grows because we've now got all three of them singing. Well, I say all three as opposed to four, but Contessina, Rinaldo, and Cosimo.
The rock voices, yes. The three rock
so
voices.
basically, Ronaldo is kind of saying, well, you know, this is it. You flout the rules. You do this. You do that. It's time you were brought down. He's got the mob behind him. He's built up that resentment. Cosimo is kind of shocked. He didn't see it coming, which apparently he didn't. And of course, Contessina is sort of basically saying, well, okay, now we're in trouble. So this is quite an intense song. And that intensity is that I imagine is exactly how it would be if that was where we were in the story. So Cosimo is going to basically find himself in a lot of trouble, which is why we lead into this song Fall from Grace. And again, we have Lucrezia basically commenting. So after this moment of treachery, after everyone's turned against him, the whole world, it would seem, has turned against him at that particular moment, Cosimo is thrown into jail with the potential threat of execution. And Lucrezia is making that comment. It's just, one day is all it took for everything to change, for the gold to turn to dirt. And this is her comment on the situation. She's basically saying, and I must say, I really like that piece. It's wonderfully melodic. There's something about that is one of my sort of favourite moments in there. It's very melodic, and yet it's very sort of dark. So that kind of makes it interesting for me. Anyway, as a result of involvement from Contessina, the execution is commuted down to exile. So Cosimo is exiled out of Florence, and therefore we get this "Will I Never Return" song, which is Cosimo basically moaning about the fact that he's been thrown out of Florence. Will he ever get to see Florence again in his lifetime? When he was first exiled, I believe it was a lifetime exile. It wasn't like a year or 2 years or 10 years. It was a lifetime. He was just exiled. And for a man like Cosimo, this would have been a very painful punishment, possibly just as bad as execution on some levels for him. So the song "Will I Never Return," I think Andy does again delivers that. There's an angst, there's a frustration in this song. That's the tension about the whole thing.
Because the worst thing sorry, Clive. The worst thing that period was just that he couldn't come back to Florence. It wasn't about his family, nothing like that. He was suffering the fact that he was far away from his Florence and from the power he held, in banking. And that was really the struggle he had. And not even staying in that cold, awful prison, the cell and everything. No, the struggle was that. So it was really, and he, when Contessina tried actually to brought him back, he got even angry because why did you do this? Why did you save me? Why you shouldn't have done it. I mean, I wanted to do everything by myself, It was very like that. But he was, by the way, a great politician, a great banker. He was really So that was all his
But
struggle
that's
about.
slightly ahead of the story.
Yeah, no,
That's
that
slightly
was
ahead of the story because
when he was in the
the
prison.
next
He had
thing
all this.
after he's been banished, I believe, if I remember from reading about it, I don't think he was exiled for more than about a year, and things
1 year,
changed
yeah,
around. Contessina was busy working and pulling strings in the background and regaining allies, as was his brother. And
yeah,
between them and various other allies that Cosimo had, the whole thing turned around, which is why we have fortunes reverse. So what we're seeing now is Ronaldo. Again, I'm representing many people in a way with Ronaldo, um, discovering that it's all turned against him again. Just when he thought he got rid of Cosimo, just when he thought he was rising himself, it all got turned on his head. So Fortune's Reverse is this tense duet between Ronaldo and Contessina, where Ronaldo is bemoaning the fact that it's all turning bad and he can't get it. And then that leads us into Return of the Medici. And the thing about this is that uh, I wanted this to be, this is kind of, if you like, if this was the film, this would be the big sort of finale scene. Even though there might be a little bit afterwards, this is the kind of the bit we're all shooting for. And so I wanted everything in it. So we've got the plain chant back in, we've got the big themes back in, we've got all the singers, everyone involved in this song. So it's a complete sort of massive pot with everything in there. And in my head, I just imagine that, you know, he rides back into Florence with a whole group of his allies, slowly being waved at and shouted at and cheered by the crowds. It was like a king arriving, and I
yeah.
wanted that to sort of be reflected in this piece. So, as a compositional effort, I'm particularly proud of this piece because of the talking about the
Well,
things I studied: counterpoint, harmony, melody. So on that basis, that was a sort of like a big moment. So you know, and in our story arc, he has returned. He's been sort of cleared of all the charges. He's back on top. We've now got the foundation stone upon which the rise of the Medici will happen. And I thought after that it just needed one last thought, a thought that perhaps might even be made from like 100 years, 200 years, 300 years later. So I gave legacy to Laura, who will give you that last one.
yes, that is like a summary that Contessina, you know, when you count all your years and what happened in your life, and you draw the point of your life, and she proudly sings about the glorious family I had. We finally came back in a glorious way, like Return of the Medici said, big and powerful as the Return of the Medici when they came back 1 year after the exile of Cosimo. And in Legacy, she kind of says, well, the family will go on because our offspring will go on and their kids will go on with our name. And that's why I sing in the end our name with that proud, in that proud and powerful way. It's really, really, even when I say it, I got goosebumps because I love to sing that song. It's a powerful, incredibly big finale for a great album like this. And yeah, it's a glorious song of a glorious family.
And that's all there is to it.
Well, that's a lot. How do you write something like that? I mean, where does that come from?
Um, I don't. I don't know really. I mean, well, it's sort of writing, just like anything else. It's something you develop over years. You know, I hope you learn to write better and better as time goes on. You learn the craft of writing. You know, if I showed you my very first rock song, believe me, you'd be laughing. And it takes, you know, you sort of develop this. As far as where do you get the ideas? And well, I mean, to me, I'm always inspired by visual or story elements. I never write abstract music. In my whole career, I've only ever written one abstract piece of music. everything comes from visuals or films that I loved or stories that I loved or stories that I've created myself. For this, it was a good story. And if you've got a good story, then as far as I'm concerned, I can write the songs.
Okay, tell her also how many days it took for you to present the whole lyric thing. In a couple of days, we basically had nearly everything. The project was all written down in one night. Can we say that, Clive?
Well, yeah, the concept, yeah, that I did. I mean, I wrote the lyrics as we wrote the music. So that was a sort of,
In a
it
short
just happened
time.
as it went. But it was, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you're inspired,
Yeah.
they say about music. I mean, this classic. It says 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Well, this is where my classical education sometimes comes in handy, because I can sort of visualize harmony and counterpoint and rhythm and all this sort of stuff probably more quickly than perhaps people who haven't gone down that path, who haven't learned to read music and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that matters, because let's be honest, some of the biggest successes, I doubt they can read music. Doesn't matter. I'm not saying this is a better thing. I'm just saying this is what I do. And so when I'm thinking about a piece of music, if I'm inspired and I have that 1% inspiration, the perspiration bit is probably a lot easier for me than it might be for some people. So I can kind of close my eyes to some extent, and I can see an orchestration. I can see how string parts might work, and I can see how the horns might work, and I can see where the vocal would come in, and I can see a structure. So I've already done all that before I even sit down at a keyboard or a computer to try and write it. So from that point of view, I think I'm quite lucky, because I'm quite good at the 99% perspiration, and I've been very lucky because I think I've been lucky with the 1% inspiration along the way as well. It's very hard to answer that question without making it sound like I'm trying to big myself up. It's very hard to talk about my own stuff like that without making it sound like I'm showing off, and I'm just trying to explain it.
No, 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 no. See, I told you the other day what my show basically is about when we wrote. And that is exactly, there was this little tiny thing what I want to get out and want to know. Actually, it was very, very informative right there. I really wanted to know what's behind there. And you have a lot of passion too. You know, without passion, I think you couldn't do something like that. There's like, you're born for this. You're a natural talent with lots of passion. And you got me into it that I forgot my next question now. I was soaked into this now. Yeah, what like, but I have, I remember.
Remember.
The bonus CD. You have a bonus CD with it. What do we get from the bonus CD? What is on there? Tell me about that.
But the bonus CD, well, when we finished, I was in the UK. We were sitting in that room where Clive is now, and at a certain point, we just looked at each other. It was like 10 in the evening. We said, "Okay, we got the main album. Hip hip hooray! We don't have a bonus album. What do we have to give? We need something for that. We don't want a karaoke album. We don't want anything, stupid like that." And we wanted really something beautiful as the main album, but in the same time, kind of different. So of course we started, and the path was very fast, because we got the ideas in a couple of days, and in 2 days Clive and I, we built up this album, and we recorded, and we sent everything to Eric, and he approved, and he was very happy about the results while we were working. And I have to say that it was a great path, because Elena's songs, for example, they were interpreted by me in this case. We have Duty of Love with less music, so it's kind of a cappella version nearly, and the power comes in the end of the music, so it's quite cool. And we have an instrumental version of Tide Will Change. We have 3 interviews that Clive makes to himself, to me, and to Eric, because we couldn't be all together as he was not feeling well, so it was impossible to be all in the same room. So we decided to do this very nice thing. that we have Legacy in a very different version, because we said, well, let's call Andy. Andy, are you ready? Tomorrow we need a song. And so we made a completely new music, and that's a completely different version. And I come in with power vocalizations in the end of the song, like duetting with Andy, and that becomes wow, really a wonderful one too. And then we had a demo of Elena when she first sang Fall from Grace, sorry. And I said, hey, can't we transform this into a duet? And we did. Wow, that duet is like a jewel, I think. I absolutely love it. I got goosebumps again. And I wrote to her and I said, Elena, we got a duet. And so I said, no, really, yes. And I called her on WhatsApp and we said, no, come on. I said, I send it up to you. And so she wrote in an interview, she said, well, Laura is crazy. She just pumps me up so much. And when I actually listened to it, I was so happy, because it was really, we don't know each other, but we became friends through WhatsApp and doing this thing together. So it sounds like she lives in Italy for some periods of the year, and some periods she lives in London, and that's very, very cool. So we speak a little bit in English, a bit in Italian. That was very, very funny. And when she listened to that, she said, wow, a really, really cool one. Lots of great stuff in that, really beautiful bonus album. But shall I say one thing? The gem, for me, is Fortune Reverse. I don't know you, Clive, but the process of that, do I have the time, 2 seconds to say that? Because, Clive, do you remember when you told me, okay, you have many ideas, but what do you want to do with Fortune Reverse? I said this. Now, on the main album, we two hate each other, and we are kind of attacking each other in that duet. Now we can actually transform this into, take out some sound, some music, and we can actually transform this into an explanation duet. So I try to accept and to listen to your reasons, and you listen to my reasons, and in the end we get together with a very powerful, we hate each other again. So that was really a completely different version of Fortune Reverse, which is our duet. That's it.
Great. It's very, very interesting, and you only get it when you buy it. So,
Yes.
will there be? Will there be? Please again.
You get it only when you buy the ebook, because it's this big format, luxury format, and when you buy the digipack, you get the main album.
Will there be a chapter 2, a second part, a continuation? I mean, it's screaming for it, isn't it, Clive?
Well, this is the slight problem that we have. I mean, obviously, we have this album, and that's great. But with Eric not being with us anymore, it's hard to imagine how we do another Imaginarium album, because if it's just me writing it, then what's the difference between it being that and, say, just a sequel to Song of the Wildlands or another Nolan album? And I haven't yet managed to find a suitable answer for that. The only sort of, so I mean, in theory, I would say it's unlikely that there would be another one. Having said that, Eric did apparently write one little bit of material, or two, possibly,
Two or three,
another idea. Well, whatever it was, another idea. I haven't seen or heard them, but maybe I would at least listen to them before we sort of decide to not to do any more along that line. But I don't really know. I don't think I've got a satisfactory answer for you on that one yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what plans do you have for a live performance with it yet? Are there any plans?
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of these sort of decisions are guided by the realities of budget. But having said that, we do have a sort of a plan to kind of present the album in a particular kind of way that would enable us to at least make a start on that idea of performing it live. And we have been offered the opportunity to perform it in early next year. And off the back of that, we might find there are some other opportunities to perform it. So we're hoping that there will be at least some form of performance next year. To do it as a full production, all singing, all dancing, would be lovely. But that will depend, I suppose, a little bit on how the album sells, what the reaction is, what the demand might be, what the budget might be. So we'll see. You know, it's hard to say as far as that's concerned, but we'll definitely be doing something live.
And what do you wish for this album? What do you expect from it?
A lot. The thing I hope for it is that people really give it a chance, because this is what it deserves, because of its intensity, of its greatness. It's a magnificent album, and the lyrics, they are very, very catchy, even if the music is complex. And you say, if I have to do this live, it's difficult. If I have to sing it live, it's difficult. But every person that will listen, that are going to listen to it, or every person in the audience, will go home having every single song in their ears, because it's still very ear catchy. This is a strong thing about the whole thing. Even if you think about the duty of love, na 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 na, that's it. All this thing, it's just to have it here. Even the music that Clive and Eric put together, everything has yes, it's incredible. And of course, the passion that we put in it, in the singing, to make all those lyrics stay in the head of the people. Well, that's in their ears, you know, and then give them goosebumps every time they listen to it. I think this leaves. It just deserves to stay there and be the album is already in its third printing, so reprinting, so you know, I think it's kind of good.
Clive, what do you wish for, expect from it?
Well, I don't think. I think what I wish for is the same as I wish always. Really, I mean, I want the album to do well. I want plenty of people to hear it, like it, preferably. I have to say the reviews have been really good, and that's a good sign. The reaction's been really good. The comments I've heard have been extremely good. So from that point of view, we're already kind of achieving something. It would be lovely to kind of see this thing rise like the Medicis, and actually sort of keep on, reaching more people, reaching across the world. It's difficult when you do it on a small label, and, the promotion is down to, sort of social media and radio interviews and such like. It's a sort of it's a slower process, but if people like the material, it will spread word of mouth. I mean, that's how many of the things I've done in the past have worked. Somebody likes it and makes sure somebody else hears it, and so on and so forth. So my hope is that this album will continue to rise, just like the title.
Anna, just today, actually, I received a voice message with a picture of a man a fan that found the CD in the most, can I say, in the eldest record shop. The words were record shop of Florence. So when something like this, called the Rise of Medici, reaches Florence, well, I think that's really a cool thing. A real shop. I mean, I used to make the difference between internet and the real shops. When you reach the real shops, it's really a cool thing, I think.
Yeah, and it's reached it's home of history. That's, like, that's something great there. I mean, the history put in an album like that, put together musically like that, every country needs that. The countries that have history, I'm just to say. Yeah, that's really, really great. Let's the Rise of Medici together, and I'll do my best for you to do that for sure. I will move on with this constantly. I will play you every time on my show. I've been up to for the next, until you come up with another part. I will promise you that. And I have one more question that I always ask, and I want to know, and lots of people want to know, especially from musicians like you. When somebody comes up and asks you, hey, how can I become a musician? What do I have to do? Is it possible to become one without knowing anything? Whatever. What would you say to them? From both of you, I'd like to hear.
On the singer's side, first of all, you should you should try to be unique, not imitate anybody. I think because your uniqueness makes everything special. So when you sing something, you don't have to be like somebody else, but you have to be yourself, and people have to say, oh, for example, Laura, and I need to really be sure that this is you. Then to be very flexible and to never stop doing, like singing always in the same way. I used to involve. I am now into some classic. I try to. I did it for another project. I love to give something different every time and for each and every project. But still, when you hear me, you say, that's Laura. That's very important. But being unique and find you and evolve yourself, not bore people with being always the same, That's from my point of view.
Yeah, I think from from all sorts of points of views, it's a difficult journey to be if you're going to do something original. As a musician, for example, as a writer, well, as a musician, if you're going to be like in a tribute band, or you're going to play in an orchestra, or you're going to play, I don't know, on some cruise ship or something, you can find there's a place where you can earn a regular earning wage and there's security behind something like that. If you're trying to do something completely original as a painter or as a musician, as a writer, it's a much less secure world. You're only as good as your last whatever album, perhaps, as well. But you've got to have a lot of grit and determination. I think you've got to have a certain amount of luck, but I think you've got to be able to take the opportunity when that luck moment happens. So it takes a lot of work. This isn't a job that you finish at 5 o'clock. This isn't a job that you have the weekends off. You don't necessarily even get Christmas off. I've been in the studio over Christmas. I mean, basically, you work and you work and you work. I do. And in the hope that something will happen, something will grow. So it does take a certain amount of determination, sometimes bloody-mindedness, sometimes selfishness probably, to be able to follow that line and believe in what you're going to do. But if you do, and you keep believing and you keep working, then there's a good chance that you'll reach some kind of success. And don't be scared to stand on the shoulders of giants either. Yes, you're looking for your own thing. You're looking to make your own identity. But there's a lot of people out there who can teach you an immense amount of stuff, and there's never a time when you stop learning. You do that, you keep going, and you're probably going to do absolutely fine.
Yeah, that's it. Because, very often you hear people, oh, yes, I've done this for so many years. I know it. I know everything. No, you never stop learning. You never stop learning. When you say you stop learning, it means that you stopped evolving. It's when they say, oh, wow, Laura, but you sing so... I know nothing. I I have so many things to discover in my voice, to go into, to so many things that are here, in my deepest passion to just be discovered, to be taken out. And I'm waiting to do that. For the next song, when I go into the next song, it will be a different way, a different approach. And for me, I was listening to some demos that I got from Clive like 7 years ago now, and I was listening to them today, and I said, this is not me anymore. This is not me anymore. I wouldn't sing this. No, I'm completely different. And well, I've learned a lot since I started to work with Clive. For example, this breathing, do not breathe, do not breathe. So now I was just listening, and I said, I was breathing so much, and now I go on like for so long, and I said, for me, it's so easy. And now when I listen to pop singers, like this, I say, why do you breathe there? Come on, go on with it. So it's a lot of things you have. You have to keep your eyes open. You have to keep your ears open, and you always learn something new. And keep the passion, and the dreams and passion. This will make you move forward. That's so great. Everything must be. You must act. You must be in the things you're doing. Right? Isn't it?
When you're singing,
Yeah.
it's not just about getting the words right and the tune right. It's about knowing what the words are saying and putting that
Yes.
across to somebody who's listening. And I
Yeah.
think that some of the great singers, it's a matter of having real control. For me, it's always important about phrasing. It's not just about breathing; it's about phrasing. And if you get the phrasing right,
Yeah.
that will often help to interpret what you're trying to say with the music, and then one thing leads to another and leads to another. I'm a big believer in word painting as well. You put certain things into certain words that kind of give you that little extra pop in the line, and it kind of adds more meaning to what you're trying to say and what you're trying to sing. And I think it's just, this is where I part ways with perhaps a slightly more sanitized pop song. That's great. That's absolutely, it's got its place and people love it. And that's terrific. But to me, when someone's just simply singing the words in time with the music and doing it doesn't really do anything for me.
No.
I'd rather have a lesser singer sing with more passion and
Yeah.
sing with more meaning. It's partly why I think I gravitated as well to musicals, because so much about musicals is where you're delivering meaning to the words that you're singing, and you've got this 3-minute song, and that's all the time you've got to point out that this story has gone from here to here, and that's why I like that sort of stuff. And I try and incorporate some of those rules into any of the music we do, whether it's Arena, or indeed Medici.
It's the most important thing, I think, to color. But even for a drummer, I heard drummers, I just have to keep the tempo. No, you have to color, because the intensity of what you're playing is exactly like when I talk about something. If I don't go deep into some things, like, for example, when I sing in Glass Throne, and I say this, this last thing, that I say something like, down, and it has to go down, and then you go up with the power. Yeah, I love to color things. I love to get into it. That's why I need to know the meaning of a song, what the author really wanted the people to reach with that song, what are the passions you want the people to feel? What are the sensations? Is it anger? Is it joy? Is it whatever it is? And then I work on it, and it's fantastic. I love my work. I love it.
At the risk of you forgetting entirely what the original question was, we're going to finish with one other thing. All right. When you're writing a piece of music, or when you're making an album, or when you're creating something like this, one of the biggest things I think you need to learn is when to let go. Because so many people I know will work on something and they will never stop working on it. It's so they don't want to let it go. And year by year it goes past, and they're still working on the same album, and they're changing a song, and they're not happy with that. And the thing is, there has to come a point where you have to say, right, okay, that's it. This song is now done. Of course, you may listen to it in a few years' time, and you may say, "Oh, if only we'd done this, or we'd added a bell, or we'd, changed the strings." But there's no law that says you can't revisit that song sometime in the future. But if you don't let go of the song, it'll never exist. It'll never breathe out there and be a song. You've got to let go, and that's one of the biggest tricks in the book, is knowing that. So there you have it. Now, don't lose track of the question you answered.
Thank you so much. But I have to. It's like you lose the track too. You know, like you put so much to it, that in the end it will be overcomplicated at some point. It won't have. It will lose the feeling, because I know when you work on music. You listen to it over and over again. You think like, nah, this could be better. The guitar player could be going this way, or the drums could be more, like, you could always add something. You could always make it more difficult, and you will never arrive with what you do in there. You just won't. And in the end, you sit there and you're still not happy with it. Even though it's super complicated, the best musicians you have around, or maybe yourself, are on that song. And when you come back and listen to the beginning, at some point you have both of them. The beginning has the feeling and the end has the techniques. To make sure that you have both left and to stop at that point, that is what I find difficult. Because
it is difficult.
Yeah.
In fact, in the early days, when in the bands that I was in, you'd often demo a song, and then you'd be recording it properly, and we'd listen to this, the final one, and we'd say, there was something better about the demo. It had more energy about it, more innocence about it, whatever it was. And nowadays, I'm quite careful when I do what I call a demo, and I'm delivering, like, I don't know, let's say vocal lines and things like that. I will go out of my way to not sing them particularly brilliantly, because I want somewhere to go. So I sort of, as long as I've got the information there, this is the tune, this is it, then that's fine. But leave room. Yeah, it's a dangerous thing. You've got to be careful you don't iron all the wrinkles out of something, I think. But there we go.
Yeah. Clive and Laura, I always tend to call you Nora. I've seen an interview with you, and he wanted to call you Paula, right? It's like Nora, Paula, Laura. It's like, and that got me into Nora, whatever reason. So Nora, Clive and Laura, you both are wonderful people. You make wonderful music, very virtuoso, very talented, and very professional. Of course. And I thank you very much for doing this with me and for being here. And
thanks to you, Anna. You are really fantastic. And I can't wait to come back to your show already.
It's nice talking to you, actually. You obviously have a lot of sympathy towards the music that you listen to. So we don't just get the boring questions. So that's fine by me.
Yes, exactly.